I'm Jess.
And I'm Wes.
And we are
the
Ontario Wildmen. On this show, we travel back and revisit significant moments, the heroes, the villains, the matches, and all things pro wrestling in Ontario, Canada. Wes, we're here, brother. Episode 1. How you feeling?
Oh, man, it's a bit surreal, Jesse. I'm so excited to be here with you doing this podcast. Damn, this is good. I'm just excited. I'm ready to talk wrestling history. It's one of the things I just absolutely love. I love doing research. But I love talking about wrestling history, so we're going to be delving right into the past of Ontario wrestling, the recent past and the old past. Like we've talked about, even going back like 100 years. So it's going to be really exciting. We've got, we're going to try to entertain you. We're going to try to educate you a little bit if we can, and we're going to try to uncover some lost treasures of Ontario wrestling history. Even if it's just inch by inch, baby, it's going to be something we're going to do. You know, part of me just wants to jump around like a crazy kid. I feel like 12. I really do, because this is like what we used to do when we were kids. We used to talk about wrestling. Oh, if I saw the Bruiser, like I'd punch him right in the gut, you know, and he'd like fall over. So it's we're talking about something we love. It's just so cool. Major parts of these podcasts, I think we really wanted to keep the crazy and really, really rich history of Ontario wrestling alive by bringing it out in the open and educating people who probably really don't maybe know much about Ontario. You know, Maple Leaf Gardens was a mecca of professional wrestling its whole life.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can't deny the fact that it was probably top 5 wrestling center for decades and decades, right?
Over 60 years, buddy.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about wrestling from the southwest of our province, which is Windsor, borders to Detroit. And then we're going to drive right down the 401, which is the main thoroughfare in southern Ontario, right to the border of Quebec. So we got about 600, 700 kilometers to talk about. And it's going to be just a panic to be doing this with you on the Dave Dynasty Podcast Network.
That's right, man. It's going to be pretty fun doing this show. I'm just curious, the 401, how far have you driven across the 401? Not in one shot, but like as a lifetime.
I think I've done end to end. I've been to Windsor many, many times. I've been to Quebec quite a few times. I've driven the whole 401. I think it probably could take you, if you did one end to the other, the better part of probably 10 hours. It's quite far, but the 401 holds a really awesome memory for me. I remember we used to go to Montreal, not for wrestling, but I think for strippers. And we used to stop on the highway, and I just remember sitting on some rocks, watching the traffic go by, a friend of mine and we didn't do anything part-time back then. So we had nice glass tumblers with ice cubes and Ryan Cokes, just sitting watching the traffic go by. May have been something else or two, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I could never get away with that nowadays, man. But yeah, like you, Wes, I'm really happy to be here. And like I always say to everybody, if wrestling was Star Wars, you are the Yoda. At least for me anyways. So doing this podcast and being a part of the Dave Dynasty Podcast Network, it's going to be awesome, man. I mean, they have a great show covering Calgary Stampede called Ring a Ding Dong Dandy. So to me, Alberta is already covered. So together as the Ontario Wildmen, we can have fun with the audience and cover Ontario wrestling content. It's fun for me too because, you know, I get to learn from your experiences and, you know, we can really capitalize on our age gap to really compare the times and compare the wrestling and compare the fans, which is going to be pretty interesting.
It's going to be really interesting because there's not a massive difference, but there is a difference in our age. I'm going to be 62 in like 3 or 4 weeks, and you just turned 33, right?
That's correct, sir.
Like what, a month ago or something?
In March, yeah.
March, yeah. So that's the opposite ends of the spectrum that we're looking at. So we're going to be able to touch on some of the stuff I don't even know about. And,
yeah.
And you're going to be able to ask me about, oh, did you ever see Rocky Johnson in the 60s or whatever, anything, right? So yeah, there's a big difference, but it's a positive. We can really touch a lot of people. We can hopefully create some vibes for the younger people who might be listening, and for people who are my age or even older that are online that might be interested in listening to us. When I was younger, I felt bad because I was a closet wrestling fan, and when I was a kid, I wasn't, but when I got older and I had the money to go to shows, I just never went. None of my friends were into wrestling. I just collected magazines and, dreamt of going here and there and things like that, but to go and seeing shows. But it's I'm all in the open now, baby, and it's just awesome. I'm just so really, really excited to be talking about wrestling with you and learning from you also, and then teaching all the great, hopefully all the great listeners that we're going to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting, man, because I hope that everyone just kind of learns from us and has fun with us. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I'm just a fan, right? So I'm just having fun with my buddy, and we get to talk Ontario wrestling history. But Wes, to start off, man, I think people need to know kind of about our fandoms. So I have a list here, okay? Now I'm going to read the list off, and we're just going to name the first thing that comes to our mind, and maybe the fans can see the two different generations really comparing their quote-unquote favorites.
Okay.
So let's go. So I got the first one here. Your favorite wrestlers of all time. Now, I mean, the list could go on forever, so let's just keep it down to like 2, 3.
Okay, so I, without a doubt, would be Ric Flair and the Sheik, the original Sheik. That two people who owned Ontario and especially Maple Leaf Gardens. Flair did just he could have shit on the ramp and people would have applauded him, right?
Really,
That's two pretty high profile people for my age group and for who I've seen, right, live. And what about you?
I mean, for me, my favorite wrestlers of all time are Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay.
I mean, I was born in the middle of Hulkamania, right? So It's like you had to like Hulk. And then come the 90s, I mean, who didn't rush home as 8 years old, running home to check Monday Night Raw on TSN at 4 o'clock?
Okay.
So it's like that's what I did every Tuesday. Come home, boom. They're playing the rerun at 4 o'clock. So I gotta watch it. So I mean, it's kind of interesting too.
I can see both of those because Hogan was such an enigma, such a massive part of a big chunk of wrestling history. I mean, he came in and his charisma was unbelievable. First time I saw him at Maple Leaf Gardens, they blew the roof off the place. I didn't go to see his match, but I went and seen for the Bulldogs, but he blew the roof off. He's such a character and such an entertainer and such charisma, marketed that way, right?
Yeah.
Stone Cold, what can I say? I as much as Hogan was billed as a, clean cut dude, blah, 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 Stone Cold was just the exact opposite. I think Stone Cold probably I shouldn't even say this. It's true. I think he ushered in part of that feeling of the fans where everybody hated the good guys and everybody loved the bad guys.
Yeah.
He was the lead on that. Because certainly his character was amazing. If I was going to pick either one of those, it would definitely be Stone Cold more than Hogan.
Yeah. I mean, it was Stone Cold too, right? Like he was the first one to kind of fight Vince McMahon at the time, the character who was like the boss, right? So who doesn't hate their boss at the end of the day, right? That's the kind of whole thing. Wes, let's move along here. I'm going to ask you, your favorite show you ever saw live?
My favorite show I ever saw live, I think, would have been my first Wildman show. He had booked a hall in downtown Toronto, and of course, we're talking about the Wildman, Dave McKegney, the Bearman, the
Canadian Bearman, Wildman, yeah.
et
Lots
cetera,
of
et
names.
cetera. We've got a whole ton of episodes coming up on him and his people, and we shouldn't forget we do have a Facebook page called The Wild Man,
Yeah,
and fans can look up the awesome stuff that's on there. And we
yeah.
also have a fan book page called Ontario Clippings of the Past, which is focusing on ads and clippings and results from right from the 30s right up to the present. But yeah, the first Wild Man show. Um, I got to see the Sheik up close and personal. He walked by me like 5 feet away,
Yeah.
and I had a camera in my hand, and those pictures are all up on the Wildman site. But I had a pitch, and he just took a millisecond look at me, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like,
Yeah.
I step back. I mean, what's he going to do? But yeah, his power, even at that age, I mean, he must have been in his, I don't know, he wasn't, he was over 50. Let's put it that way. He was
Yeah, I
over,
mean,
I think he was born in
once you started
29.
working with the Wildman, yeah, he
Yeah,
he
he was an older dude, but his charisma and he was just one scary dude because everyone knows he lived his character right to the fullest, right? And seeing him live up close and personal was absolutely amazing.
yeah. See, that's funny too, right? Because so it's like you got a Wildman show, but again, I grew up in the Vince McMahon era, right?
Yeah.
So right, so my favorite show literally just happened. It was 2018 SummerSlam at the Scotiabank Arena. It was amazing. You had Lesnar versus Rollins, Orton versus Kofi for the title. Trish Stratus came back and fought Charlotte Flair.
Oh,
So
really? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, cool. How
So
was that?
that was amazing, man. To see Trish, she didn't lose a step, man. She is a gorgeous woman, amazing athlete,
Hmm.
absolutely fantastic Canadian talent, homegrown. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
perfect. And against Charlotte Flair, who pretty much to me is the top of the women's division. She's done so much. I mean, WWE forces us down her throats, but whatever. That's besides the point. If
Hmm.
she can perform in a match, then she can perform in a match, and
Yeah,
that's all that matters to
she
me.
gets the push. Yep.
That's right. Let's move along here. Your favorite wrestling shows that you saw on television?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. You got to go. Unfortunately, we're going way back, and there was Pedro Martinez was a promoter from. He wrestled in New York. He promoted in New York. He was part of the New York Syndicate kind of thing in the 40s, and he moved up to Upper New York State, and he promoted in the 50s and 60s after Ed Don George left Buffalo. He promoted the National Wrestling Federation, which was kind of competition to the Sheik back in the early 70s.
Yeah,
Cleveland, basically west from Cleveland into Buffalo, parts of Pennsylvania and stuff, Erie, Pennsylvania. The show was so different from Tunney's show here in Toronto. That's what I really liked about it. And they had most of the undercard guys were the same, but their TV matches were, I guess you would call them the TV main event matches, were phenomenal. Like the Fargo brothers were there, Johnny Valiant was there, Sheik, Bobo. They had some really great matches, and it was just different for us here from what were used to. Also, the Grand Prix out of Quebec, because we got that on TV here too, and they had a whole different ball of wax, and that was, of course, Andre the Giant. When he first came to Canada, he was wrestling for them, and to see him and Don Leo Jonathan clips of their matches, Mad Dog Vachon, Edward Carpentier, who was one of my favorite wrestlers, and a bunch of other people that we just didn't see in Toronto. So you're getting a completely different viewpoint on wrestling and stuff that most people would only see in the magazines. We were seeing it on TV every Saturday.
that's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. See, with me again, Vince McMahon era,
Yeah,
Raw, SmackDown, NXT, like the new AEW on TSN, which hit or miss. I like logical stuff, right? So there's certain things in wrestling that just drive me nuts, like Ronda Rousey giving Nia Jax a Hurricane Rana when the weight difference is about 300 pounds. You know, drives me a little crazy, man.
I try to suspend my disbelief, but I can't on some of this stuff. I can't. I don't watch it on TV, but I see some of it on the computer online, and it's like, I cringe. But
Yeah.
that's what's going to make us hopefully have lots of listeners, because you're going to be able to do your input, and I'm going to be able to do my input.
Yeah, and that right back to the comparison, right? And it's going to be
Yeah.
really cool to see. Okay, this is going to be really funny. Favorite arena? I'm sure it's
There's
what, like
only one. There's only
Maple
one
Leaf
in
Gardens.
Ontario. It's Maple
Yeah,
Leaf Gardens. Yeah.
yeah. The Loblaws on Church and Carleton.
Well, it's strange. I haven't been down to Toronto since it's changed. I was lucky enough that I grew up in an era where I went to concerts there. I went to ice capades, circuses. I went to a Pierre Elliott Trudeau political rally there one year, which was bizarre. Lots of concerts, lots of NHL hockey games, but most especially I really enjoyed the wrestling, which was when the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling came up to Toronto. That was the hottest ticket in town.
That changed the game. That changed the game.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it was the end of the era. Yeah, the Sheik was out, and the AWA tried to come in, but when Steamboat and Piper and Flair and Valentine started showing up at Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, they owned the place.
really, eh?
For sure, yeah.
Man, it would have been something to see those guys in their prime walk the ramp at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, like,
If you would you say that your SummerSlam concert was SummerSlam show was your favorite?
oh yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of significant things in wrestling. That's by far the best show I've ever seen live.
Yeah.
I was at the NXT 2016, and that show had DIY versus the Revival, which won Match of the Year for WWE. So to say I saw that was pretty cool,
Yeah.
right? The title change from Nakamura to Samoa Joe, like for Joe becoming the two-time NXT champion. I was at the first WWE Roadblock, which is now officially, it's kind of like a pay-per-view now. But when it came to Toronto, it was at Ricoh Coliseum. And it was just like, it was a mix of main event guys and NXT guys. So they're farm league. But now back then it was a farm league. Now it's like a main show.
Mm-hmm.
So, who's the wrestler that you wish you got to see live?
I bought tickets. I didn't usually buy tickets for Maple Leaf Garden shows until the day of the show.
Why is that?
I just didn't get to Toronto. I mean, I worked in Toronto, but I didn't get down to the Gardens to buy them.
Okay, fair enough.
So Superstar Billy Graham was advertised as coming in, and I said to myself, I can't pass this up. I don't care. He could wrestle. I don't care who he wrestles. I don't care. He could be wrestling Terry Yorkston. He could be wrestling like any scrub or jobber guy. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
I bought tickets early. I bought because I was a closet fan. I went always by myself. I went down and taped out in front of the Gardens was a sign, the superstar Billy Graham won't be appearing because of a leg injury. And at the time, there was, of course, no internet. There was no, so no one knew. At least they advertised that he wasn't going to be there. And I said to myself, well, I bought the ticket. I got good seats. I might as well go. So I went to the show. And I only wanted to see him because he was so big on the magazine covers. So huge. And because we also in Toronto, we got to see the WWF TV shows. So
yeah, so that was, and so for our listeners who don't know, that is Vince McMahon's father's promotion.
Yeah, Vince did the terrible commentary. If you watch on any videos, it's like minutes of action, and he doesn't say a word. Like he's obviously doing something else. He's supposed to be commentating on TV. He's doing something else. And, whatever. And we got to see Superstar Billy Graham on TV here, and that was, I just said to myself, I can't miss seeing such a famous person. And I did go to a few shows where I only went to see one person, But yeah, not seeing him was a bummer because he was like pre Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah. I
Did you
mean,
did you ever
it's
get
true.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like it's true. I mean, there's so many people you just wish you could have saw, right? Like for me, Andre, the Sheik. I
Hmm.
mean, shit, man. If I could go back, I would love to see Whipper Watson. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
who wouldn't for sure. Any person
Right?
from Ontario, yeah.
Don Leo, like to see Don Leo Jonathan, that would have been sick, bro, back in the day. And like people gotta understand too, back in the day, people didn't really know about kayfabe, right? It wasn't broadcasted. Everyone thought like legit like heat.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
which
You
is
know,
a big difference from nowadays.
and people, you'd have to be so ridiculously privileged in the 60s, especially, so let's say for Ontario, because we know now, because we can do all this research, which we've done. We've done tons of research already. So we know that Don Leo Jonathan worked in Detroit on Saturday. He worked in London on Sunday. Then he worked in Toronto on Monday. And then he worked in Montreal. We know that now. But back then, you would have had to have been so privileged to be able to travel and see that. Maybe they did the same show, but they never usually did because different bookers, different people writing the script, they needed to get a different story over in different towns. And to think that some of these people, and our researchers showed, like Fritz von Erich, say for example, wrestled in a town of not even 500 people. They had an arena. They put wrestling on all the time. How? Why? I boggles my mind.
Yeah, right. Uh,
We got
well,
off there a little bit.
no, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
So that was fun, man. Shared stories and everything. I hope everyone enjoyed that and learned about a little bit about us. We're gonna go into deep talks about some of our favorites and just do episodes on them, like Whipper and the Sheik and stuff. And we'll make sure that we cover all those heroes and legends, as we say. Um, but what I want to say to all you listening is, what are your favorites? You can reach us at Twitter at Wildmen Podcast, or you can, like Wes said earlier, we have two Facebook groups, Ontario Clippings of the Past and the Wildman Tribute Show. So let us know what your favorites are. Maybe we can do an episode on one of your Ontario favorites. But until then, Dave, Dynasty, hello, sir. It's time for that commercial. We'll be right back.
Ciao.
Breaking news! This important PSA is brought to you by Manscaped.com. This is your public service announcement and the news you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is now available for purchase in the USA and Canada. The new trimmer was just released, and we are one of the first to get our hands on it and share the news. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. You get 20% off and free shipping with the code DYNASTY20 at manscaped.com. Listen, I am one of the first people to try the new 4.0. They sent me one, and I'm blown away by the performance. The craftsmanship and details on the 4.0 are next level. Their advanced ceramic blade and skin-safe technology is so good that it almost seems as if Manscaped worked with Elon Musk's engineer to ensure your testes are as safe as possible. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code DYNASTY20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code DYNASTY20, that's DYNASTY20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Welcome back. Wes, I guess we should start at the beginning, man, and how we met, which is kind of funny because we never really met face to face before, which is also going to make our show a little interesting.
It's definitely going to make our show interesting. We, this is bizarre. It's beyond even bizarre because, sometimes you just don't know how you're going to react to people. I knew when you started posting some of your posts on some of our Facebook tribute pages that there was a common thread between us. I didn't know what it was. I just felt like, wow, who's this Jesse guy? I said to myself, like, I think I even said to my wife, wow, there's this kid. I think he's got some Terry stuff. and your enthusiasm came across, which was the most important thing. And you were like, I think the second day I saw one of your posts, you asked me a question, and it wasn't a silly question. It was like a real legitimate question about something. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. This guy's interested. And your enthusiasm for the historical aspect of Ontario wrestling really, really interested me. And I thought, who is this person? What's going on? I checked you out, of course, and I was like, okay, he's posting information on the Wildman tribute page, and he's asking me stuff, and there's too much of a thread. There's way too much of a thread there. And then I realized after just briefly speaking with you, you know what I'm saying? We ceased talking, whatever, we weren't. It was Terry Dart. And Terry Dart was a super fan in Ontario here from the late 50s until his passing about a year ago. Actually, it's coming up close to a year. And I knew Terry for over 30 years, and he was my mentor. And he was my genesis for starting the pages, the tribute pages. He was my genesis for reaching deeper into the history and reaching deeper into the knowledge of that's gone. When that's gone, it's gone. So I started the tribute page to Dave McKegney, or the Wildman, and Terry passed on so much information to me. And right away I got that from you. And I could sense that, I could feel that. And when I found out you were in possession of some of Terry's collection, and paying homage to him, which was important to me. You didn't know him. You didn't know I knew him. You were treating his possessions with respect. And that was frigging massive, man, to me. That was massive. I knew we were going to be friends right away. And we've never met. And we probably will never met because I'm moving away from Ontario. We probably will never see each other face to face. But this is awesome to be doing this podcast. And after not even 6 months of knowing you, your name even, and vice versa, we're here. And this is so cool. So cool.
Yeah, man, thanks. I really appreciate that, man. Like, how serious I took Terry's stuff. And, at the end of the day, like I say, I'm just a fan, right? Like, I'm having fun doing the Facebook groups, and, things really just opened up for me. And I say it all the time, right? I say it all the time. I'm just a fan who just likes to research it. I don't consider myself like a true Ontario historian like yourself or AC or Greg Oliver, right? Although, even Pete Jarvis is great at what he does. The detective, he'll find you anything. If it's out there, the detective will find it.
Exactly.
Right? And then, like, when I got some of the, like, when I really got into the famous Terry Dart collection, I felt like I had to continue his unfinished work. And I've told you that before off there. Yep. And I've told, like, Greg this too. Like, I really took it serious. It's like, this guy legit started a project. And it's unfortunate that he's not around to finish it. So you know what? I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to share it. And I'll never forget what Greg said. He said, you get what you put into it, because I got a pile of stacked paper. And I literally had to dig through every little piece. And because of that, wrestling history has become a huge passion of mine. And it's still opening up doors for me. And I mean, look at us. We're doing the show, man. Like,
it's beyond belief even, because like I said, I was a closet wrestling fan, and to come out, I guess if you were a gay person, and I don't care if you were pink or blue or tall or short or green or whatever, but if you were,
of course you don't. We're Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. Good one. And the relief that people say when they come out, taking that weight off their shoulders of hiding or something. And I can't I'm not saying I'm comparing. I'm just saying that that's what this is like to me, sort of, that I'm able to say, oh my God, you know what? I've been reading my wrestling shit down in my basement for like 40 years. And I finally able to talk about it and pass it on. And I have to keep my wrestling history alive. And I'm passing it on to you, and you have to take that wrestling history and if you can, take it to the next step. For sure.
Yeah, right. And like with that show too, we can hopefully take up some of our collection too and teach everybody about Ontario and people who listen in the US about Maple Leaf Wrestling and what really happened in pro wrestling in Ontario. I mean, I don't have anything else against Canada. I love Alberta, but we're not going to touch Alberta because Ring a Ding Dong Danny's doing Alberta. You know what I mean? I would love to talk about BC and Gene Kiniski, but I don't want to do that. Our content is complete and utter surrounded about Ontario professional wrestling. There's so much history here, and it's time to, teach everybody else and talk about this stuff and how far things have come. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I figured once that because some of my research, I looked at the towns that have had wrestling history and how many years, and I figured that from 1945 to 1985, so that's 40 years, there was probably 20,000 wrestling cards in Ontario.
Yeah.
That's being really, really overly general. I mean, I have no facts on that, but I'm just saying, considering the towns that ran the A towns and the B towns and the C towns and the D towns and the summer promotions that ran and all the different people who ran in Ontario. 1957, I think, in the summer 1957, and I worked on AC with this project, there was something like a couple hundred cards in Ontario in the summer, and some days had 3 cards a night in Ontario. That's the different promotions, but there was so many promotions in Ontario, and the history of some of these. We can talk about Larry Kazaboski, who ran Ottawa area and up north to the northern parts of Ontario. Well, Larry Kazaboski, who cares? Well, it's not about who cares. It's about Dory Funk Sr. wrestled there, and Terry and Dory were always there with his dad. They came on summer holidays. That's where they wrestled. That's where they learned. Nikolai Volkov started there. Vic Rossitani started there. So many guys that were important in wrestling history started with these backwater or second-tier promotions, and Ontario had a lot of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure the population in Ontario is way different now than it was back then. I guarantee they didn't have a condo in 1950 with condo fees and all that kind of stuff. So it brings around to me to like talk about our show. Like we talk about how we want to bring else. What else would you want to do? Like if you had to interview somebody for this show, or like I'm all about. I've talked to you about this too. Getting the Ontario wrestling talent out there that's there now. Like who's out there now, right? Who's wrestling now? Who are fans seeing? Who can we help try to elevate to that level? Like if we have all these audio outlets and we have this opportunity, why can't we have Ontario stars on this show and people that were born in Ontario and help them get to their Impact Wrestling or the NXT or to Europe or wherever?
Mm-hmm. And this is a part of what we should strive for also in the future, that we should be the promoter of Ontario wrestling, not physically, but via this great opportunity. Thank you very much for having me. And as usual, Ron, you look fantastic. That's a Gene Kiniski promo. But yeah, look, I've seen Josh Alexander wrestle as one of the only guys I can really speak about now. I think he's fantastic. I really
Impact
enjoy
X
him.
Division champion.
He is intense. I'd love to have him on. You'd probably know more of a younger crowd of guys. Like I like Rob Frago. He's a decent guy. I've talked with him many times. He's a cool guy and he's a promoter. So it would be cool if he's ever wishing to get back into the promotion of local shows.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of like I don't want to get too much into the who is from Ontario, right? Because that's for next month.
We're gonna be getting into that on our birthday show.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I was gonna say about Ontario too in the show, it's gonna be really interesting to see the feedback also, and maybe this will get people to want to come forward and tell their story. Like guys like the Assassin, or, like maybe former, I hate to use the word, midget wrestler, right? Because you can't say that word now. It's got to be little person, right? So I'm saying.
But we really do have a plethora of wrestlers here in Southern Ontario who worked like all over the world, some of these guys. And yeah, some of them are older, some of them aren't as old, some of them are younger than me, but these guys have a story to tell, and they were born here, they wrestled here, maybe they started out somewhere else, but they came back here. So we have an option of really giving the audience and the chance to bring this out, of getting a lot of guys' story out there. Not just the older guys, not just the 60s and 1970s guys, but the guys that you're going to see.
Yeah. Let's see, like, who's starting now? Like, it'd be cool to talk to Tyson Dukes and about his London wrestling school, and I think I saw his son is wrestling now, and it'd be cool to talk to, like, all the top guys, and even Dark Side of the Ring. Some of the Ontario wrestlers are in that show. So there's lots of options. But before we get into all that, we got to go back to our friend Dave. And then when we return, we will be talking about the introduction to professional wrestling in Ontario.
Cool.
We'll be right back.
Grand River Tea is proud to be sponsoring the Ontario Wildmen Wrestling Podcast, produced by Dave Dynasty Podcast Network, with Wes and Jess providing the Ontario wrestling historical content. Grand River Tea is providing their tea of choice, Dropkick Yopon. An ancient plant grown wild in the southern United States, Yopon is the only caffeinated plant native to North America. It has been used by Native Americans and early settlers in North America for decades. It's organic, sustainably wild, harvested, and hand-picked, and is only touched while growing by sunshine and rain. Dropkick Yopon is a medium roast tea that has amazing aroma of maple and a beautiful golden color when brewed either cold or hot. Here at Grand River Tea, we take our sourcing seriously, and we want to reduce our carbon footprint and make our teas as sustainable as possible. All our loose leaf teas are gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free, and have no sugar. So put your kettle on and enjoy some Grand River Tea.
It amazes me to even know professional wrestling even existed in 1929. But not only existed, there was a wrestling war going on between two promoters, Jack Corgan and Ivan McAuliffe. I probably said that wrong, but I don't really care. Wes, 1929, okay? We're 11 years past World War One. We're at the end of the Roaring '20s. The Great Depression is literally about to start, which affected so many Canadians and introduced social welfare from the government. I mean, and we're fighting over wrestling. It's kind of funny to me.
It seems bizarre that try to put this into terms of the day. The tickets were what they were. How could people be fighting or bitching or having a war about a few $100s? But a few $100s back then was big dough. And we know that these guys fought tooth and nail against each other to keep the promotion.
That's right. Ivan started running shows in 1929, while Jack, he started the Queensboro Athletic Club. He used Massey Hall. So for people who know Massey Hall, I think the most famous thing out of Massey Hall was Neil Young there, but whatever. That's my opinion. But with Jack using Massey Hall, Ivan using Arena Gardens, it kind of brings up a question to me when Jack aligns himself with the newly built Maple Leaf Gardens in 1931. But in 1932, Ivan was denied his license renewal. So I ask you, maybe there's a little bit of politics in there?
The Ontario Athletic Commission, which we will more than likely talk about in a future episode or episodes because we got a massive history here with that. They were the governing body of sports and entertainment. And what I've read also about some of the underhanded dealings with money going back and forth back in the day, Ivan unfortunately didn't stand a chance. Jack aligned himself with Conn Smythe, who was very well off, built the Maple Leaf Gardens with his own money, basically, which was a massive project considering back in the day, to build something that big. It was probably the biggest building in Toronto at the time. So for one person to get shut out, there had to have been definitely politics involved.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Conn Smythe is the principal owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He built Maple Leaf Gardens, as Wes said, in 1931. They started construction in May, and they were done in November. Hardcore hockey fans, too, will know the name Conn Smythe because of the Conn Smythe Trophy awarded to the NHL Most Valuable Player in the playoffs. Yeah. So even though he's a hockey guy, Wes, you gotta admit, this hockey guy who had nothing to do with wrestling at all, he built Maple Leaf Gardens, which was, I mean, it's our Madison Square Garden.
It's the birthplace of professional wrestling, basically, for Ontario.
That's right, yeah. Queensbury Athletic Club used to run shows there, and once, Jack and Ivan only rivaled for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, like you said, the alignment happened, and they were doing pretty well. And they ran business, out of the Maple Leaf Gardens for 60 years?
Yeah.
It's the be-all, end-all. It's our Madison Square Garden. It's our Hollywood. And now, if you really want, it's our Loblaws, and you can go down there and get milk, because that's what it is now, which is a damn shame that we let that happen.
And you know what? You think about it, the way the gardens closed could basically be compared to the rivalry between Jack and Ivan.
How so?
Politics and the city fathers. Hey, we're over here on this side. Oh, we're over on here on this side. People just don't agree all the time. And for what big corporations or rich people think that they should do, it's exactly what happened to Maple Leaf Gardens. I grew up with Maple Leaf Gardens. It was my whole life. We used to drive by sometimes in the 60s, and I was like, oh my God, that's Maple Leaf Gardens. Oh my God, I drove right by it. And maybe once in a while you'd see a hockey player or something outside of it, and he'd be signing autographs, and just the storied history there of everything that went on there, and to see it brought down to a level of basically nothing. It's so sad. The strain of Conn Smythe and all the supposed, I heard, underhanded stories of breaking the union and not having scabs working on it, not having scabs, and having people who some union workers were paid with stock in the Maple Leaf Gardens, and it wasn't even a viable thing yet. But that closing of the building, to me, I know time marches on. Believe me, I understand, but such a place that could have been used forever and ever and ever and ever, instead of just a concrete jungle like the Sky Dome or the Air Canada Centre or whatever you want to call it, any other place in North America that presents sports, right?
Yeah. It's just amazing to me that Ivan was drawing small numbers, and then to thousands of people. Let's say 1,000. Just let's a random number, 1,000 people, right? But then, brother goes to renew his license, and even though he's making money, they're like, nah. And then the whole Jack and the Queensboro Athletic Club, align themselves with the Maple Leaf Gardens, and boom, bingo, done. Like, how can you compete with Maple Leaf Gardens, especially back then?
Because who it's like who did Ivan piss off?
Yeah, pretty much. That comes down the question.
Jack turned left, Ivan turned right, and Jack walked into Maple Leaf Gardens, and Ivan was still promoting down at the Neutral Street Arena, which I had roller skated in at the time, back in like 1,000 years ago, which was pretty cool because I knew there was wrestling there when I went roller skating there, but I don't even know if it's still there anymore, Neutral Street Arena. But the Maple Leaf Gardens is certainly, I think for most Canadians even, the Montreal Forum, obviously a rich history, but it's no longer, the original Forum is no longer there either. Rich history of professional wrestling, but, I'm sure any fan across Canada would have loved to have said, oh, we went on holidays to visit my uncle in Toronto and we drove by Maple Leaf Gardens. But just like you said, you've driven by, it's like, oh my God, there it is. Like, so cool, right?
Yeah, I tried to open the doors at the front and they're locked. I do that all the time. I do it every time I'm in the city. I do that, man.
You should have wore your uniform. You could have maybe got it and said there was some package for you or something.
Yeah, right? You got any cool Maple Leaf Garden stories since we're talking about the garden?
I only went with my dad to one hockey game in my life. And it was maybe 1971. I remember it was the St. Louis Blues. And my dad said, I got hockey tickets. We're going to the Leafs game tonight. So we went to the Leafs game and we went in, and you go up the escalator and you go upstairs and you go up and you go up and you go up and you keep going up and you keep going up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, where are we sitting? And we got out into the main part of the building instead of being underneath the stands. And we walked 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 and we sat in the last row of grays against the back of the building. I swear to God, there was no further seat in the house. And the guy beside us had a 12-pack of beer, of Stubbies.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, like, Dad, like, what's the guy doing? He's like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I remember when they turned the lights on, we were there early. We turned the lights on for the NHL broadcast because it was a Wednesday night game and it was on TV. And it was unbelievable as a kid. What a really cool thing to see. The noise, the level, the excitement of the hockey game. But that's nice. I mean, that was my first visit there. But the best story, oh my God, this is a good one. So where I used to live, and back in the day, people my age, when we were like 13 or 14, we could go on the streetcar, we could go on the subway, we could go on the bus ourselves. Our parents would let us go downtown by ourselves. Seems hard to believe now, but they just did. So we had a family friend, and the dad was always working. Always working. So one day, I didn't know, this must have came through my parents. Oh, so-and-so, Jeffrey's parents have got 2 tickets for the Leafs game, and they want you to take him down to the game. I said, oh, you know how to get there, right? Oh, yeah, of course I know how to get there. She said, well, here's the tickets, and she's giving us like, I don't know, say $3 for hot dogs and a drink, right?
$3?
But it was next to nothing. A hot dog was, I don't know. I can't remember how much money we had.
Yeah, but now you're paying like $15 for that.
It was a dime. It was a dime to get on the bus, and it took you all the way from Etobicoke, which is the suburb of Toronto, all the way downtown. So it was a dime there, a dime back. So
20 cents.
Yeah. 20 cents. So we get on. Yeah. It was one bus to the subway. In the subway, obviously, you switch subway cars, and you go down and you get up. And the crowd on Carleton Street basically stopped from the front door of Maple Leaf Gardens all the way to the subway cars down below ground. All those people all got off at Carleton Street. They all walked up the stairs to go into Maple Leaf Gardens. So many, because there was hardly parking downtown. So anyways, we get inside. The kid's going, and this kid was a little bit younger than me. So he's going, I don't feel too good. And I'm like, fuck, we're going to the game. I mean, I'm not going to, I don't care about you. I get tickets to the game. I'm going to the game, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who was playing. So by the time we got to our seats, the kid was like, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. So we'd already bought our hot dogs and our drinks. And where we were sitting, there was seats in Maple Leaf Gardens were colored. So they were gold, I think red, blue, green.
So basically just like kind of like nowadays.
And gray. So we're sitting in these green seats in the corner. And it was a great place to catch pucks if it was deflected up into the audience. But it was like a balcony seat. So there was like maybe 8 seats across, and you walk through a little cubby hole and down a few steps onto these seats. And there was like a balcony. So you could have actually jumped over and died because it was that high up. So the kid kept saying, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. And I couldn't drink the pop fast enough out of the cup so I could hold it over his mouth. So he barfed everywhere.
Oh.
And it was on a balcony, so it was all dripping down. And I was like, oh my God. What do you do? I mean, you look over, what are you going to say? I'm sorry? I don't know what to do. I was just a kid. I was only like, 13 or something at the time. I don't know. But that was so weird. I'll never forget that. Poor Jeffrey. The kid's name was Jeffrey. He's a nice kid, but oh my God, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. Don't say anything when your mom's here. For God's sake, don't say anything because she'll take the tickets off us, right? I won't be able to get to go to the hockey game. Yeah, barfed. And he barfed, and he barfed, and he barfed. Ugh.
That's hilarious, man. Let's come back to Jack. So another name that Ontario fans are going to know in wrestling is Frank Tunney. Now, Frank Tunney got hired by Jack to be his secretary, and then at Tunney's request, he kind of got his older brother John a job, which is good, right?
Yep.
Right, and I'm pretty sure John ran the shows and all the wrestling through the Depression era.
He did. He ran it for not sure how long. It wasn't that long, but he did run it. Yes, he was
39. He did.
He was the guy.
1939.
Yeah, Frank wasn't the guy at all.
No, he was the bookkeeper of all things.
Yep.
And then come 1939, our buddy Jack Horton gets sick. He's got to sell his shares. He's got to sell all of it. And who takes up? John and Frank Tunney.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that pretty much launches right into the 40s.
It pretty much launches Ontario wrestling history. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the significant moment there with with John and Frank is that after they got all the assets and everything, John passed away suddenly, and which left Frank Tunney in charge of everything. So you're telling me between 10 years, let's go 1929, because that was as far as Ontario historians have matches. Ivan started in 1929. John started the Queensborough Athletic Club. The two rivaled within the city. Maple Leaf Gardens was built in 1931. Jack aligned himself with Maple Leaf Gardens. Ivan was denied his license. And then, out of chance, Frank gets a secretary job. And gets his brother a job. And now the Tunneys ran professional wrestling. And when things all come together, it just amazes me that in the span of 10 years, there was 3 different wrestling promoters in Toronto. But once John died and Frank Tunney took over, the rest is history, brother.
It is. The rest is history. We know that there was a whole pile of arenas in Ontario or in Toronto area that were popular for wrestling that they would have put wrestling on. But the mecca of Ontario wrestling and Canadian wrestling is Maple Leaf Gardens. And just think about, like we said, how Jack turned one way, Jack Kikoran turned one way, and Ivan McAuliffe turned the other way, and the alignment moved and the progression moved towards and ended with Frank. And Frank, what we know, and that'll be for a different episode, but we know that Frank was like a jolly giant kind of guy, and served him right. Served him right for being at the right place at the right time. He did what he did, and it was the massivest part of professional wrestling history in Ontario, for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, once 1940 hits, it's pretty much Frank Tunney all the way until he passes away, which is, I think, in 1983.
Yeah.
Right?
And then,
So, actually, this month, it's coming on the anniversary of this month of Frank Tunney.
Still, a Tunney was still involved with Eddie and Jack, of course, until basically WWE took over everything. And that's a legacy of, I mean, any wrestling fan. It's like when we are doing research, Jesse, and we're looking up the word Tunney, and so many times you get the boxer Gene Tunney comes up. And supposedly kayfabe, he's a relative of Frank, but I don't think he is. The Tunney name is synonymous 100% with, and he was, we'll never know all the backstories, but what we do know is that he was a number one guy, spot on. He was a great guy to work for, a great guy to be in business with, and he shared his wealth with so many other people, and we'll talk about them, of course, too, in another episode of some of his guys that worked for him promoting around Ontario.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into that and dive into how Frank brought his nephew in, Jack, which is John's son, into the business as well. It's going to be a lot to talk about, but we're going to cut it off at 1940 there, Wes.
Cool. I'm good with that.
So next month, we're going to do a Canada Day special, and we want to celebrate with you. So please join us next month on the Ontario Wildmen podcast. I just want to let everyone know that we'll be looking for wrestlers born in Ontario, the wrestlers who perform in Ontario, and some of your Ontario favorite promotions. I'm sure people will be amazed by how much talent this province truly pumps out of the professional wrestling world, Wes? That's
right. We're going to be delving into, it's just going to be so much fun. We're going to be delving into so much, and what a great start, Jesse. Thanks a lot. This has been so much fun. Just freaking awesome to be here with you in the audience, and we're going to look also in the future, like you said, some of the lesser-known promotions that ran opposition to Frank and Jack. And I'm so honored to be helping both you and the fans out there keeping the history and tradition of Ontario wrestling alive. Even though we haven't seen a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about, like Whipper and what have you, we're hoping that we can keep their memory alive by digging a little deeper and giving some research on these guys and talking about them, and preserving not only the older history, but some of the recent history as well. So it's been a slice, as they say. I'm really happy, and I'm really excited about doing the next one. So Jesse, I'm gonna say take her home, baby.
Yeah. Well, until then, next month, Canada Day special. You could reach us on Twitter at Wildman Podcast. You can reach Wes on Twitter at Wrestling Wildman, and that's Wrestling Wildman. You can reach me, Jesse, on Instagram at WrestleWithJCal. You can reach either one of us on our Facebook pages, Ontario Wrestling Clips of the Past, or the Wildman Tribute page. We're everywhere, especially next month, right here on the Dave Dynasty Podcast Network. We'll see you next month, baby.
We'll see you next month.